The college football experience, BYU Cougars 2024 season preview episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with their brand new Pick 8 sign up. And when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer of up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm is loaded up with a ton of picks for the British Open. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm.
Hey everybody, Jim McMahon here, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Welcome to the college football experience. BYU Cougars 2024 season preview episode. I am excited to be here. YouTube.com/the college experience. Been knocking out episodes all day, talking college football all day, because that's what we do year round on the college football experience. And look, year 2 in the Big 12 for the BYU Cougars. I'm excited to talk about it because I think there's a chance for Kalani Sitake to totally redeem himself. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, my name is Colby Swinging Database Dad, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I smoke and I drink, and I don't have stress, and I'm healthy.
I meant to say I soak and I drink and I don't have stress and I'm healthy.
Well, who could have stress when you're soaking, man?
I soak and I drink. Let's go.
But you don't drink.
Yeah, that's true. I
You
drink
soak and I don't drink. Yeah, you got to change it completely.
I soak and I drink Capri Suns. I don't have stress, but only with the straw of the Capri Sun. That's always a bitch, you know. Excited to talk ball here. I do think college football is better when the BYU Cougars are better. I think they have arguably the best stadium in all of college football. I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for former JMU Duke defensive back, the burrito eating, sideline kiss stealing, wheeling and dealing, Patty C in the place to be.
Hi-oh. Well,
let's get it going, buddy. Let's get it going.
Yeah, we're talking about one of the most iconic brands. I mean, who is a bigger brand, per se, in the new Big 12?
Colorado right now, maybe. But besides that,
I mean, yes, I'd say Colorado has, Oklahoma State's a decently big brand. TCU has made themselves into a big brand, but in terms of a rabidly loyal fan base for a long period of time, it's pretty tough to match BYU.
Yeah. Shout out to the chat. Austin in the chat says ASU yesterday, BYU today. Polar opposite college experiences. Very true. Very true, but both do have something in common. They both have great football venues, in my opinion. But BYU Stadium, you want to look at heaven? You don't need to put a bullet to your dome. All right.
Lavelle Edwards.
Oh my God, man. This stadium, if you just Google image this for 20 minutes, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Anytime I'm depressed, I just Google image Lavelle Edwards Stadium and I go, good Lord, it's beautiful. It's everything that's right about college football. You know, if this was the NFL, they would, you know, probably they'd take down those malls. Or I mean, sorry, what am I talking about? They take down those mountains and build a mall.
Yeah,
they take down those mountains and build a mall. Buddy, year one in the Big 12 was tough. It was very tough. I have several issues with them. I did take the over last year and I ate shit on it, but I should have been. I was a little paranoid because they went out and got Keaton Slovis, which he's never going to complete a season.
Yeah,
you just know it. When Keaton Slovis is your plan and you don't really have a backup. Check us out. He only completed one season, played all 12 games. That was his freshman year. And he played 5 years in college. We got 5 years of him missing games.
Yeah.
And he only started 8
in last year. Yeah.
And he only started 8 and he got knocked out of a couple of them, I feel like. Just
didn't exactly kill it either. Especially when you compare him to the guys that were before him. Obviously Zach Wilson and Jaron Hall both put up great numbers. Jaron Hall over the last 2 years he was there, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions 2 years ago, and then 31 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I guess that was 3 years ago and 2 years ago respectively. And then Keaton Slovis 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. A huge drop off from the quarterback position last year.
Yeah, and they have. I was doing some deep dives on BYU here. They've only had back-to-back losing seasons once in 54 years of football. Right? One
that's
time.
That's how you build a brand right there.
Well, that's why you look at last season, you say 5-7 season, which by the way, they had Oklahoma on the ropes with BYU's backup quarterback. They had some tough. They got their ass kicked in a couple games because of the quarterback situation. But at the same time, I just want to say, I feel like the team, they beat Arkansas at Arkansas. That Kansas game, there was a late pick 6 that blew it out of proportion. It was really a closer game.
Yeah. Although I will say the Cincy game, they completely lucked up in. Cincy gave that one away. So it's not that they were playing great football in that win. They
were not playing great football all year. Sam Houston game was 7-0 in the fourth quarter. But they did push Oklahoma State to overtime. They probably should have beat Oklahoma. And that's why I believe that it was a little bit misleading. I'm not saying they were a great team last year, but I do think they should have been a bowl team last year.
Yeah, they were okay. BYU, like we mentioned, is rarely a poor team. There's just too much talent, too much development. Let me ask you this though. 2020 was COVID. They went 11-1 against a really weak slate. 2021,
but that's because they had to adjust their schedule. They had to find teams because none of the conferences were playing each other outside of their own conferences. So their whole schedule. Their whole schedule, they had to adjust on the fly. So I'm not going to.
They were still independent up until last year, obviously. So, but 2021, 10-3, and finished.
And that was a good schedule. That was a legit schedule. Yeah,
they could have been a playoff team if they can, replicate that anytime soon. It's going to be harder in the Big 12, obviously.
We're going to talk about it, folks, but I want to tell you are listening to the College Football Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And look, the Sports Gambling Podcast is getting you ready for college football season as well with their conference previews, which I'm featured on. Go check those out. Tune in wherever you get your podcast or the SGPN app, which is free to download in the App Store and Google Play Store. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride. Back talking, Gage in the chat wants to hear about the soaking. He wants to hear about those soaking moments.
I feel like I soak unintentionally sometimes, just because I got the quick trigger finger, Sometimes you got to turn it into a soak session.
I don't get brain man cold.
Can't always be 765. You can't always be rocking and rolling in there. Sometimes you got to tone it down.
It's easy to see a tide turn.
Buddy, where are you at with Kalani Sitake? I've seen multiple hot seat reports.
Well, he has been there for quite a while. What is this? 8 years. I got
graphics. I got graphics here.
Yeah, what do we got?
Well, here's the thing, man. I get it. Last season didn't work out, but I don't know that he should be on the hot seat. He's 61-41 in 8 years at BYU. Now he is 21-23 against the current Power 5 throughout his whole career. He is 0-2 against East Carolina, but that's understandable, right? You don't just walk into G Vegas, and then of course when you let the Pirates come there, and trust me, we soak in a different way. But where are you at with him? He's 3-3 against the SEC. YouTube.com/The College Experience. Hop on over these graphics. You know, he is just 1-4 against Utah, and he's blown some leads in that game, and just 3-2 against Utah State. So that would be I guess the biggest concern. But he's 2-0 against USC, 3-0 against Arizona, 1-0 against Arizona State. Your thoughts on Kalani Sitake?
Well, you know, if you compare him to his predecessor, Mendenhall, who is a good coach, you know, so if you're getting compared to Bronco Mendenhall at all, that's a good thing. Not quite as many wins, and you know, against the independent schedule as well for basically the entire time. But he had some good years, Sitake, like we just mentioned, 2 10-win seasons. But I feel like we looked at this before. Bronco Mendenhall was getting a little bit easier of a slate, you know, during his tenure there.
In the Mountain West, the schedule was easier. So I think Mendenhall only did like a year or 2 of independence, and then he bounced to Virginia.
Yeah, you're right. When they went independent, Mendenhall had 1 10-win season, and then you know hovered in the 8-9 win range. So he wasn't in that 10-win range. What 1, 2, 3, 4?
Dude, those schedules when they were independent were absolutely insane.
Yeah, for whatever reason. And look, when we look at this, they haven't changed a thing. Even though they're in the conference now, they're still challenging themselves in the non-conference to a ridiculous extent. It's not quite as crazy as it was, you know, where it'd be like 12 Power 5s almost, but it's still like pretty close. You know, it's not easy what they're doing.
So do you think he deserves to be on the hot seat this year?
I don't think he should be. I mean, it depends on how bad he is. He had one tough year, 5-7, not even that bad in the transition to the Big 12, you know, followed by 11, 10 and 8-win seasons, like, respectively. I think he deserves at least one more year, unless, I mean, what number do you think makes them want to get him canned? If he goes bowling, I think he should get another year. I'll say that.
Yeah.
5-7, even, I think they should probably consider giving him another year. 4-8, yeah, it's okay.
I agree. I don't think he should be fully on the hot seat, but I mean, and especially your replacement Mendenhall just went to New Mexico. He's not going to hop back over. So what are you going to do? What are you going to go? You're going to go out there and bring in who? Utah just named their Whittingham just named the what's his name? The sitting coach in waiting. I mean, are you going to try to lure him away? I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. The DC for Utah.
I do know that that had been, for some reason, for 2 programs that hate each other as much as they do, they seem to have
a lot of coaching continuity or like crossover, right?
Morgan Scally, is that?
Yes, that's his name.
Yeah, he's the head coach and waiting at Utah. I mean, yeah, that would be a nice rivalry move to pull him before Kyle Whittingham leaves. You know, snag him for yourselves.
I think Sitake's doing good.
Yeah, I think he's doing okay.
Let me ask you this: we do this with each and every team. What's the worst loss there, Patty? I think it's pretty obvious, right? Even though June Jones put up 72
that's bad
on BYU. sometimes you really forget how good June Jones had Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, I wonder when that game was, because maybe that's why BYU decided to recruit the hell out of the Hawaiian Islands so hard after that game.
He scored 72 points on BYU's always been respectable. They've never been like a 1-win team or a 2-win team. That's insane.
Weren't ready for that island flavor.
What about Liberty, the Flamin' Libs getting them 41-14? Is that, or I think the big one there is in the middle, right?
Yeah, UMass, obviously.
The UMass Minutemen did come, and they did it in Provo too, dude.
That's wild.
God.
That's a black guy right there.
All right, look, folks, before we talk about the offense, the defense, what they did in the portal, the special teams, everything, and go game by game on the schedule, I want to tell you, the BYU Cougars 2024 season preview is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, Underdog Fantasy just launched their college football best ball product. You better believe we're going to have episodes with live drafts covering this thing. First place wins $20,000 plus The higher or lower pick 8 allows you an opportunity to win 325 times your entry. You can now use specials and boost on all flex entries. Don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. So sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit all for up to $250 in bonus cash. Once again, underdogfantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. Yes, Circa in Las Vegas just came back from that. I was there for Mountain West Media Days last week. Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. And of course, Circa contests have no rake. Yes, Circa Millions. Pick 5 NFL teams ATS each week and compete for the $6 million prize, or survive the NFL gauntlet to claim the $10 million prize. Sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save you $50 with the promo code SGP. Don't have a trip booked for Vegas yet before football season? Let me tell you, Ultimate Contest Weekend is a great weekend to go out and hang out. If so, you can kick it with Stacking the Money Green and Ryan Real Money Kramer from the Sports Gambling Podcast and enjoy some of the open bar events or some of the open soak events at the greatest sports book in the world, August 22nd through August 24th. All right, back talk at BYU Cougar football. Love Lavelle Edwards. Love what he built here. You know, our friend Mike Leach, may he rest in peace, was a BYU grad who started out his career as a GA under Lavelle Edwards.
He was LDS Mormon as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. Andy Reid is, you know, they have a big coaching lineage, big football lineage, man. Well, they couldn't ball last year. They were 99th in scoring offense, 23.1 points per game. That was dead last in the Big 12, Patty. See, every single offensive statistic, they were dead last at 118th in yards, dead last in the Big 12. 90th in passing, dead last in the Big 12. 118th in rushing, dead last in the Big 12. Good God, I didn't see this type of transition into the Big 12. I did not have that circled.
I mean, what do you think? Well, I mean, do you think it was just, I mean, Slovis not only didn't play much, but he didn't play well. So that has to be
I've never understood the hype on Slovis. Like when he was at USC, I thought like he's kind of a quarterback.
Yeah.
And then like, I'm like Pitt goes and get him. And I'm like, am I supposed to be high on Pitt? They went from Kenny Pickett and they're like, we got Slovis. And I was like, very good. Then BYU goes and gets him.
You know,
I don't know.
I will say this too. Zach Wilson was a mobile quarterback, even though he's obviously a pocket passer by trade. Plenty of athleticism. Jaron Hall, to me, mobile. I thought Jaron Hall was going to be like a Heisman candidate.
Dude, he was a baller. He was a baller, man.
Yeah, he had a disappointing, I guess, 31 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Like we said, it's not really; those are almost Heisman numbers. If they hadn't been 8-5, I think it was the losses that was disappointing, following the 2 10-win seasons. But I think this offense really benefits from having some wheels to open things up on the perimeter and open up, I guess stretch the field and open up things all over the line of scrimmage in the running game and even downfield. Slovis didn't provide that, so that could be a reason that the offense stalled out a little bit. Yeah,
and I don't know how they got sold on that. I'm glad to see what they did this year. Now they did go out, and this is what I liked about they have 5 returning starters, by the way. And it depends if you actually look at like Phil Steele's catalog, they'll actually say more returning starters. This game has gotten really hard to do over the years when we were doing this show, years ago. So Phil Steele has it as 8 returning starters, but I think there's only 5 that actually started at BYU last season. I shouldn't say that. Like Kody Epps was there, but he only started at I think 5 games last season. So it's like, where's the threshold for where you say it's a returning starter or not? I feel like you have to have started majority of the season to be a returning starter.
Probably, but I will say this, taking a peek at their returning production, most of it's back. I mean,
yeah,
LJ
that's
Martin,
why it's tricky
rusher.
to do this thing. Yeah, it's very tricky. I didn't put LJ Martin on here because he didn't start enough games, but he started 5 games too. So it's like, I understand if someone's watching this saying, "Oh, well, these guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about," but it's like it's an incredibly hard thing to do these days. is sit there and say a lot of teams go running back by committee, and if they didn't start the game, they don't get credited for a start. So then do they count as a returning starter? I don't know where you put that threshold.
There should be, I guess, returning production kind of is that stat as opposed to returning starters. Just because, I mean, like you said, playing the first play of the game makes you the starter, and you don't even have to play the rest of the game. That's a kind of a dumb stat.
Yeah.
Returning production is a better indicator, I think, and I think
but you can't tell returning production on the line of scrimmage, so that makes it challenging.
They have no stats.
You know,
yet.
like
Which is something that is terribly missing from the game of football. Can we get some offensive line stats? Please?
LJ Martin. So if you're counting LJ Martin, and if you're counting some of the other guys that they have here, Keanu Hill, then like I said, if you're going by Phil Steele's thing, they have 8 returning starters. Shout out to Phil, by the way. Phil Steele will be on the show in a couple weeks, and look, we it's hard to do this these days. I'll just say that even BYU used the portal, as you'll see here in a second. Offensive losses, Patty C. Ryder Burton heading out to West Virginia, going from Provo to Morgantown. Good God.
I feel like Ryder is a very BYU name, by the way.
Wait a second. You're telling me this guy is going to go from hold on.
Culture shock on the horizon here.
This is, I think I got some, wait, he's calling in right now. Ryder Burton calling in now. He's in Morgantown. Here we go.
I'm dying in this fucking country ass fucked up town. Shit flying in my mouth. The fuck? I can't see pollen. And let's get the fuck out this country, mother.
Oh, okay.
This is all you have to do is watch Kingpin, or I forget the one with Seth Green where he's out partying. Sex drive.
Morgantown, you'll always be home sweet home to me.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say he's no longer a virgin. He's no longer a soaker. He's
soaking is actually illegal in West Virginia. They're soaking in whiskey. That's all they're soaking in.
Sol J. Mavia goes to Bronco Mendenhall. He comes in. Mendenhall goes, I like that guy. Have him come down here. Dominic Henry to FAU stands out, and the rest are kind of like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's I don't feel like I don't feel like they lost that much, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see any of those dudes anywhere on the production chart, so to speak. So
shout out to Max Berkovich, because Longhorn fan who still sees Taysom Hill in my nightmares. How about when Bronco Mendenhall ran Taysom Hill like 7 million times? They ran for like 500 yards against Texas. One of the most hilarious college football game. I'm sorry, Max. I know you're a Longhorn fan, but that game, it was glorious. Like quarterback power. Quarterback power. Quarterback power. Quarterback power.
You want to talk about a mobile quarterback?
Yes.
He's a beast.
That game was hilarious. But yeah, I think I don't think they got really hit. And then this is the big thing for me. It's like they learned from a season ago that they could just go get a bunch of quarterbacks. I know they still have Jake Retzlaff, I think his name is, but Gerry Bohanon, who was previously the starting quarterback at Baylor a couple years ago, then was at South Florida, and Bynum came in there, and he's like, all right, I'm out. Trayson Bogut from Western Michigan, I thought was pretty good in a few games I saw at Western Michigan. And then McKay Hillstead is, I know, one they like from Utah State. So they're just, hey, we're taking a bunch of quarterbacks. This is like when they had Steve Young and Jim McMahon, and at the same time as man, what's the guy's name that won the national championship for them? I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Detmer?
No, he didn't win the national championship. It was like in '83. God, he was the OC there in the early 2000s too. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Anyway, yeah, look it up, because he was a fucking stud. He was an absolute stud. I'm embarrassed that I'm forgetting his name right now.
Let me see here. Robbie Bosco.
Yes, Robbie Bosco. Dude, they were quarterback U for a minute there. Quarterback you for a minute, even recently.
Steve Young, freaking Jim.
How
McMahon,
many fucking Beck started for the Redskins? Like you've had a lot of pros. Ty Detmer started, for multiple NFL teams.
Taysom Hill.
Taysom and Zach Wilson and Jaron Wilson and Jaron Hall. Yeah.
Is Jaron Hall where'd he end up?
Steve Sarkisian. Jaron Hall, he's on some team, right? I feel like he's on some team. Was he on the Rams? I don't know. But I kind of like that philosophy, just going to get
got drafted by.
Well, because that was their problem last year too, though, is I feel like once the injuries happened, they didn't have any guys. And so it's like you stock that quarterback room. They also got Marquise Montgomery, a tight end from Cal. And they got a couple guys on the offensive line that maybe can add some depth. But would you say they won the portal? They got their starting quarterback in the portal. I'm going to say they won the portal.
Well, they got potentially a quarterback by committee situation because is Gerry Bohanon so different from Keaton Slovis? He has, this is.
No, he'll run a little bit more.
He was in college football in 2018.
That's normal at BYU.
Yeah, that's true, but they usually don't play every year. That I guess he didn't last year. But this is his 7th year as a college football quarterback.
That's an advantage.
That is an advantage, but he didn't.
How many 7-year quarterbacks are in the Big 12? Alan Bowman, Cam Rising, Gerry Bohanon. Didn't you say Shedeur Sanders is in like year 5?
5, I think.
Unbelievable. They won the
Bohanon can
rush.
Offense. You're right. He's got 1,000 rushing yards.
And that is the difference. They went with a lawn chair, a very fragile lawn chair in Keaton Slovis last year. Bohanon is going to help this offense, man. He really is, just by his legs.
Bringing back LJ Martin at the running back position.
The receivers, nice. Kody Epps, Chase Roberts, Darius Lassiter, all back. Keanu Hill at the tight end spot.
Their top 3. No, Isaac Rex is gone, but he was one. 3 of the top 4 receivers are back, and then Keelan Marion's back. So that's 4 of the top 5 receivers.
I'm telling you, I buy it into it a little bit here that the offense will be a lot better, but let's talk about the defense. But before I talk about the defense, I want to tell you that the BYU 2024 season preview is brought to you by Rhythm. Yes, the British Open's going on this week, and if you're not checking out the AI picks and props from Rhythm, you're missing out. Not just outright winners. They got picks for the top 5, top 10, top 20. Use their AI caddy to get some great data insights. You can even customize your own golf betting model using Rhythm's tools. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. All right, back. I do think the offense is going to be in much better shape. Much better shape.
It can't get any worse, really.
Shout out to Robert Martin in the chat. Big Max Hall fan who played for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on TV right now, man. Check out the CFL gambling podcast. But the defense, Patty C, which Sitake, that's his forte. And I loved the hire this past offseason of Jay Hill. I thought it was going to work out. I'm not even going to blame it on Jay Hill because I feel like the offense was so bad. The defense stayed on the field. 96th in scoring per game, 29.8 points per game, 11th in the Big 12, 106th in yards per games, 11th in the Big 12. They had the 9th best pass defense in the Big 12, 91st nationally, 109th in rush defense, 3rd worst in the Big 12. I understand all those numbers are terrible, but I do believe Jay Hill is the guy that will get this defense together. It's year 2 of him. He was the head coach of Weber State. They took the sitting head coach last year from Weber State to come over to BYU.
By the way, do we know if it's Weber or Weber? Depending on
Weber.
Is it? I feel like half the people I hear out there say Weber, but
yeah, and they're wrong. It's Weber. Okay. It's Weber. The defense I think is going to be much better this year. I really believe that. Once again, it's a little bit of hodgepodge if you're guessing the returning number. Some say 6. I've seen people say 7. From what I was gathering, I had it at 5 with 2 on the defensive line, Tyler Batty and Isaiah Bagnaw, linebacker Ben Bywater, and 2 in the secondary, Jacob Robinson and Micah Harper. Kicker Will Farron's back as well.
Yeah, I didn't see Harper on the depth chart on our lads, but he is No, you're right. He's back. Never mind.
Yeah, he's penciled in to be. So Raider Demooney is a guy that might start too. It depends where you look for this stuff. That's what I'm saying. Like it's harder to do our job than before. And Seth is right.
Oh, go ahead.
Seth is right in the chat. They were one of the most injured teams last year, in my opinion. You watch them; they were a very, very injured team. That's why I think it's misleading to assume that they were bad. Like I know some people have had the conversation with NC Nick that, they were a dud into the Big 12. I don't think so. I think they're a solid team. I think that's a good get for the Big 12 long term.
Well, that's exactly kind of what I was about to get at is, they're two of their top 3 returning tacklers aren't even projected to start this year. Those are safeties, Ethan Slade, who's the number 2 safety, and Crew Wakely, who's the number 3 on the depth chart. He was 5th on the team in tackles. So obviously they must have been banged up somewhere in the defensive backfield, at least for those guys to get that kind of production, despite being backups. But overall, I would say it's mediocre in terms of production returning.
They're gonna be better though. The second Jay Hill, I was dumbfounded when he left to be the DC. It was very Chip Kelly like. He was 68-39 at Weber State with 6 playoff berths. What's that? I
mean, FCS to FBS. Sometimes it's hard to.
But he was at Utah with Whittingham before that. Like I believe that they're gonna get it right. I'm not saying it will be definitely this year, but and some people have said that he's the next coach. They think he'll be the next coach if that happens. But
do we know how old he is?
I don't. But
let's see.
Either way, I think our guy
in 97 in Utah defensive MVP in 99. So he's not that old. He's pretty young if he was playing college ball in 99.
I know our guy Rush from the Big 12 experience. Shout out to Rush Bishop. He was saying that he thinks he could be the next head coach there. He's a BYU fan. Family's from BYU.
That's always awkward when the head coach is already on staff. If you fire someone and bring in his replacement from the same staff.
Well, Sitake, I think, is the guy that hired him. So, I mean, that's on you then,
Well, what do you mean by that? Like, I feel like it isn't Hill like at least partially responsible for a lack of performance? If they have that, why would you hire that guy if he was part of the staff that, deserves to get a head coach fired? Unless the offense is just so inept and the defense is, the strong point, then yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it was the stronger point last year, but not by much.
Yeah, not saying that much.
Yeah. But shout out to Seth and shout out to Robert. Always, we got the best fucking fans. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. The portal, they lost a couple guys that actually were, decent. John Henry Daly. I love how he was named John Daly. He's like, I can't be John Daly. Give me John Henry Daly. He heads off to Utah.
John Henry a lot tougher than John Daly. Let's be honest.
I mean, look, I get it. There's coaching crossover, but is anything sacred anymore? Is anything fucking sacred anymore?
It's just up the road. Quick trip.
Yeah. And Chris in the chat, who's a BYU alum, shout out to Chris. Exactly. Jay Hill is actually really respected. He is, because he had a damn good run at Weber State.
He's saying Aaron Roderick will be the fall guy, the offensive coordinator.
Yes. And dude, I remember Jay Hill. They played like Utah State. It might've been the year Utah State won the Mountain West. And Weber just destroyed them. And Weber's
a good, solid program, and they were best when he was there.
Yeah, yeah. They also lost Danny Salili to. I'm probably butchering your name, Danny. This is a shout out to Welcome to UAB, who said this is his favorite podcast to listen to all year because I can't pronounce any of the names. He's now at Arkansas. Michael Daly, no relation to John, maybe. Is that Rice, Nasiri Danielson to San Jose State, Zion Allen to Southern Utah, the Thunderbirds, Quentin Rice to Kansas State, and long snapper Austin Riggs to Rutgers. No one's gonna get that reference, but
we're getting old.
Yeah. Patty C, how big are those losses?
Oh, I mean, again, not a ton of those dudes that I've seen particularly. I'd have to go back and double check real quick. But
well, John Daly, you know, is a hell of a good guy. All right.
you do have to be aware of that. Rattle those names off again while I take a peek at this.
John Henry Daly.
Nope.
Heading to the Utes, the 2 Utes. Danny Salee.
Nothing.
How about Quentin Rice? Corner Quentin Rice going to Kansas State.
Not a ton of production. Nope.
See, so you could say they kind of, maybe dodged the bullet. They went out. They didn't really do much. You can see the Jay Hill influence, though. He's like, I got a guy at Weber. His name's Jack Kelly. You guys, let's call him over here. He's going to go through all the pussy in Provo. And let me tell you, Jack Kelly is going to help this defense be something. All right. Also, Mark Collins from Weber State coming over in the cornerback. It's funny. I put Michael Daly there. He actually already transferred out. Bryant Strother from UCLA. All right. I don't know. I honestly have no idea how to grade the defense, whether they lost or won. I will say the offense won, and that is enough. You got your starting quarterback. I say you won the transfer portal if we're grading this thing. How about you, Patty C?
Yeah, on that alone, I would say it's a slight win. But again, it's not like Bohanon has proven himself to be a Heisman caliber quarterback. It's like you got a starting quarterback. I wouldn't say it's a definitive win, but it seems like you got a little more in than you lost.
Yeah. Shout out to Chris in the chat who posed a good question, Patty C. Before we talk about this win total, I seriously hope they shit the bed this year. He says this as a BYU fan and puts Sitake on the hot seat. Well, I think he's already on the hot seat. I just read a couple of articles over the past couple months that had him as a top 10 candidate to be fired. Donors are trying to pay for recruits like in the basketball program, but football coaching staff wants BYU players. So, Patty C, this is one where it is interesting. BYU has a shit ton of resources.
Yeah.
I will say, like, when you think about NIL, I don't know that they'd want to put their money involved, but apparently, according to Chris, but you want to talk about one that could absolutely kill it if they wanted to. That's the thing, though, is at BYU in particular, you do kind of have to get a BYU guy. You have to get a guy that's going to follow with money. You could, if they're really willing to spend money. There's a lot of Kyle Filipowski's
guy out of school. Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of there's enough out there to field 22 starters that could be very good.
They could improve their talent for sure. I will say though that obviously, Brian Kelly, the RKG, right kind of guy, approach, getting the guys that he fits his approach to football. Even Jim Harbaugh did that. Jim Harbaugh wasn't
Mendenhall too.
Yeah, Mendenhall. But I mean, if you want to talk about a national championship caliber coach, it took a while for Harbaugh to, piece by piece, get the kind of guys in there that are going to make the difference that he needed to make. But eventually he turned that program rock solid at a championship level without barely any 5-star recruits. So I'm not opposed to that approach, but if you have a ton of money, you're probably right. You should use some of it.
I like blending both. Like, I don't want you to be Miami where you just, and this is dedicated, this goes out to Chris. Like, if you just go buy a roster, it doesn't mean you're going to win.
Yeah.
I like a mix of both. Can you have coaching staff that is big into player development, but also can address your weaknesses? Yeah. And address your weaknesses. You can't be like Dabo Swinney and just ignore that you have a glaring weakness going into the season, and you can use this thing that's legal.
Right. Tons of talent right there at your disposal, and you just refuse to take advantage of it.
Shout out to Myron Kidd in the chat, longtime listener, hell of a good person. Would BYU ever hire a non-LDS coach, though? That's a good question, Patty C.
I don't even know the religions of all their previous coaches. Sitake, Mendenhall, I don't know, Gary Crowton. Lavelle Edwards was there for like 500 years. So it seems like since at least
I just assumed he was Brigham Young.
70s. Yeah, Lavelle Edwards
I just assumed. I was like I was like doing a deep dive of that guy. I was like, oh shit, he's been there forever. I'm just gonna start calling him. Was it John Smith or Brigham Young? I don't fucking know. But
Joe Smith, I forget who it is.
Yeah,
one of those
Joe
guys.
Smith, hell of a good power forward. But that's a good question. I think it is a good question. I just don't know that answer. Chris would be better fit to answer that question, being a BYU alum. Would they ever step outside of that? Because that would be very interesting as well.
What's his name was I mean, I think they'll go out of the LDS ranks for obviously players.
Why wouldn't you though? Why wouldn't you though? You know what I mean? Like this day and age, if anything, you can set an example by your, within your university.
Yeah, but I don't think that's. No? I think they are like really trying to, maintain their culture. Yeah.
Well, that's fine too. You know what I mean? As long as you like, I just think like it could be interesting if you do have a candidate.
Yeah, if you can go get Nick Saban.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you imagine if there was a guy really interested in going to BYU, like as a head coach, that was that you knew was a slam dunk, and you're sitting there saying, "Well, he's not that." Yeah.
Who's the Bears quarterback? That was the beer drinking. Of course, I'm Jim McMahon. He's a Catholic boy. Let me tell you something.
Let me tell you something. Jim McMahon's been on the show many times, actually.
Yeah.
He never soaked. I guarantee you that. He showed up to Bears training camp with a 30-pack. All right, on a motorcycle. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop the facade.
He never soaked a day in his life, but they did let him do his thing, and they were happy with him.
Well, they kicked off one of the guys on the basketball team a few years back for having premarital sex, and I just like, really?
Win more,
Come on. Chris in the chat answered and said, I think they would favor an LDS coach. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
as long as
that's fair. That's fair. Patty, see the win total sitting at 4.5 wins. I'll be honest. My first reaction to that was, I'm going to bet the hell out of BYU on the over.
But that schedule.
True. Well, we'll get to that. But like plus 1,200 to win the Big 12 championship, plus 70,000 to win the national championship, which I guess I got to mention it since they won one in 84 or 83, whatever year that was. It's actually minus 125 to the under. So Vegas is saying this is a 4-8 team, Petty C, plus 105 or 110 to the over. I was shocked by that number. I honestly thought it'd be 5.5 or 6. I'm a bit perplexed by that. Let's dive into it. Week 1, they do have the Salukis, who are a good FCS, by the way.
Yeah.
Watch out. Like they're in the FCS playoffs almost every year.
Yeah,
they should be fine.
Maybe asleep at the wheel there, but yeah, you should handle business there.
Salukis have one of the best helmets in all of college football. But
that dog on the side.
They got like Lassie on the side of the helmet. Just the nose of Lassie. It's fantastic. 1-0. And then they head to Dallas, Texas. And this is a game that I fucking love.
I mean, it is glorious.
This game. BYU, who won't spend the money, according to Chris, that wants to get the BYU guys, and SMU, who will do anything. And I mean anything. I'm pretty sure they're tied to the JFK assassination. This is fun. This is why college football is incredible. Like there's so many levels and layers to college football. I don't think a fan appreciates the fact we have a school like BYU, the fact we have a school like SMU, and they're still in the same mix as Alabama or Tennessee or Michigan. And you also have service academies.
Well, it's just
the
confusing thing
is perfect. Yeah.
It is beautiful, that contrast there, but SMU, the Methodists that I've met in my life are super like strict religious too. The fact that that university is notorious and it seems like, continues to be kind of really scuzzy when it comes to managing their football team. It doesn't really add up, but apparently they're okay with that.
I whatever it is, I love it. I think that's one of the great things. I know we're getting sidetracked here, but I just want to voice why I think college football is so much better than any other form of football on the planet. Is because you do have this. You have SMU, you have BYU, you have that, but at the same time you have USC. At the same time you have, whatever. Like it's fantastic. I think the disparities between the two, it's what makes the sport fun. Patty
Well, I
C,
guess what I'm saying is that SMU and BYU, even though their programs have such completely different identities, their fans probably aren't that different. Going to a game at BYU at SMU, probably going to be a little hard to tell who's who, but
I disagree. I bet you go to, I mean, maybe from like a moral standpoint, but like you go to, when I picture and I've never been to an SMU game, so I'm talking out of my ass here.
Me too.
I just picture them like buying me like Johnny Walker Blue and being like, "Hey, welcome to Dallas. You want to be, you know what I mean? Where
is
like
a different breed altogether anyway. So.
But I think it's a winnable game. I think SMU's getting a lot of love for one of the easiest schedules in college football last year. I think
this is a winnable game.
I think this is just the type of game Kalani Sitake can win. And I think BYU will be the more physical team in this game. Now, SMU continues to spend crazy. They have the athletic edge 1000%, which makes this game fascinating to me because I think BYU is the more tougher team.
Yeah, certainly typically a much more physical team.
Yeah. And I guess you got to lean SMU, man, but I think this game is more winnable than people think.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw BYU make the transition from a 10, 11 win team and an 8-win team. I guess their average win total was probably just around 10 over the last 3 years before they came to the Big 12. And lo and behold, they dropped to 5-7. SMU had 11 wins last year. They're probably going to have a similar, experience.
I'm calling for an upset. BYU gets it done. BYU upsets them.
Well, I'm going to say this: one of these two tough road spots, they're going to win.
Laramie.
They're losing in Laramie.
I just feel like Laramie's that sneaky, super hard place to win, man.
It is. Again, I don't know. Like I'd have to go to Wikipedia to see what the no,
BYU's won like 10 straight, but that was pre Craig Bowl. Like I think they got Craig Bowl once in a bowl game, but in Laramie, to me, like that Wyoming team was horrible pre Craig Bowl.
He turned them good, but I think the mountains are a gigantic advantage. That elevation and
rivalry too. I love this game back on the schedule. They should play this every year.
They should. I do enjoy it. I just think that the home field advantage that Wyoming typically has obviously won't be there for a team that also plays at that elevation.
True. But I'm just saying, like, it's just crazy though. Like the fans and stuff. Like, I think SMU is not lit. Wyoming is lit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. BYU will lose probably one of those two games.
One of those, I'm fair. I'll meet you. I'll meet you there. I'll say 2-1 in the non-con. They're home to Kansas State. Dude, I think this is winnable too, man.
It is. This is where the home field advantage factors.
I love Kansas State. I love Avery Johnson. I love Chris Kleiman, and they're one of my favorite programs in the country. But this is a dangerous ass game for Kansas State to me. You go into Lavelle Edwards, which, like I said, on the right side, like they can beat. I know we joked about a UMass loss one year, but they at home, like they've beaten some big time fucking programs. Mississippi State, USC. There's been some big time programs that have came there and took L's. I think Ole Miss went there and took an L. Wisconsin, I think, might have took an L.
It's no cakewalk.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think this is like more. I'll favor K-State, but like by a field goal, this is like that. That's still a winnable game, man.
Let me ask you this. Between the two games, again, I guess, I'm kind of hedging here and going in 2-game chunks, but the road trip to Baylor, do you think you want to favor Baylor there, even though they had a tough season last year?
I'd favor Baylor by like, I mean, this is the classic. We're going to say this for every Big 12 game. I'd favor Baylor by a field goal. Any home team.
Yeah, it's going to be favored by a field goal.
No, I think UCF, like when I look at the UCF game, I think they'll lose that game. Right. And we'll talk about the other ones, but I'm saying like the Baylor one is a winnable road game to me.
Yeah. I almost want to give them slightly under, 50% odds in that 2-game stretch. So I guess I can give them 1-1 there, but I feel like 0-2 is more possible than 2-0. But 2-0
I'd agree with
you. Yeah. I think 1-1 is probable actually.
1-1. And so that would put them at 3-2 going into the bye week.
Yeah.
They're home to Arizona. If you listen to the Arizona preview, I took BYU to win this game.
I'm taking them big.
Yeah. So I'll put them at 4-2 there. So then you just need one more win to hit the over. Oklahoma State comes to town. Oklahoma State's a strange team, man. They could lose this.
They could.
That's the hardest part about doing this Big 12 exercise is like every damn game is like maybe.
Yeah, we might as well just be flipping a coin right now. I'm gonna say this.
1-1 there. Arizona and Oklahoma State 1-1.
I'll agree with that. And then I'm gonna hand them a loss at UCF.
I think that's a flat out loss at UCF.
So we have them at 4-4.
No. Wait. So wait. I got Southern Illinois, SMU, and either K-State or Baylor. That's 3. Arizona would be 4. Okay. So yeah, 4-4. And then you got the Holy War, which is, I'm so glad the Holy War is back on the schedule. However, hey, Big 12, McFly, what the fuck are you doing here? That should be the final game of the season. I know the chat was talking about this a little while ago. Shout out to Myron Kidd. What is this? It's just a complete fuck up by the Big 12. Yeah. That should be the final game of the season like it was for so many years. They're going to lose at Rice Eccles.
Yeah.
But those games are crazy though, man. Like I want to say Sitake is 1-4, but damn if he hasn't had like a double-digit lead in like 3 of those.
Did he get the most recent one there?
He did. But no, that was in Provo. The game prior to that, I want to say they were up 21-0 and lost the fucking game, dude.
Yeah.
It was a wild game.
It's almost like the Red River Shootout in the way it just like without fail produces, classic after classic. Typically, I'm not saying there's not an exception here and there, but usually it produces a great matchup.
Shout out to Chris in the chat who says, according to his relative, Bohanon is not going to be the starting QB. That would be shocking. I know Phil Steele is calling for Bohanon to be the starting QB, but Retzlaff. I mean, they have so much depth. I think it's a position where they're really much better off than they were a year ago, but that'd be a little shocking.
Retzlaff didn't even like really generate great numbers. What was he? 50% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions in 4 games. You better hope he improves if he's your plan as the starter. It sounds like the quarterback position isn't in a great place coming into the season.
So we got him at 4-5, right now.
Yeah.
The Kansas Jayhawks come to town.
Tough game, but potentially
winnable still.
Did they play them last year?
They did. Remember, this was like an 11-point game, but it was really like a 3-point game. They had a pick six. They had a pick 6 very late in that game to dress that thing up.
And that was in Lawrence. Getting them at home is a whole different ball game. Winnable.
I'll tell you this. Arizona State and Houston I actually favor them in those 2 games.
I do too. So on those last 3 games, I got them going 2-1.
I think they're going to bowl. I think they're going to be a bowl team this year.
6-6 is what we're looking at here.
I even think though, like they could be. What are the flat out guaranteed losses, Patty C?
I mean, at Utah seems like,
and probably at UCF, right?
Not even, but close. I mean, I think you might be sleeping on Oklahoma State. How big of a challenge that will be. But
still, Oklahoma State, they lost. Still, like they're a strange team. Like South Alabama beat them by 28 in Stillwater last year.
Right. But if it's not the first 4 weeks of the season, Oklahoma State is vulnerable. After that, Oklahoma State turns into a very tough team to beat.
But let's not forget that BYU took them to overtime in Stillwater last year.
All right. What was that? The second? That was the last game of the season.
Double overtime.
Okay,
Yeah,
I stand corrected there. Maybe that is well, yeah, I would say then probably at Utah, and at Utah is the only really game that they'll be.
I'll even say at UCF, I doubt they win. Right?
Yeah, probably pretty tough. Yeah.
Even though Myron's in the chat saying I can see them beating UCF. UCF's inconsistent, perhaps, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say like I feel pretty confidently that they are going to lose at UCF and Utah.
UCF looks good. KJ Jefferson is going to be an improvement for that offense. UCF looks like the better team. What does UCF have coming into that game? That's a good question there.
But my point is, it's a hard schedule because every game is losable. But also, like, it wouldn't shock me if you told me this team's 8-4, I would have no problem going through and saying, okay, win against Southern Illinois, win against SMU. They beat K-State at home 3. Oh,
winning
Baylor,
Wyoming,
4.
Unwinnable.
Yeah,
dude,
that's what I'm saying. They could easily be 5-0, and then you're thinking, okay, even if they get, let's say they split Arizona and Oklahoma State, that's 6. They could lose to UCF, lose to Utah, and 7 and 8 could be Arizona State and Houston, or you could lose the Wyoming game and beat Kansas. I don't think it's that crazy. I think the over is a pretty good bet, man. I trust the culture there that they've built. They've never had back-to-back
devil's advocate seasons.
Then. Yeah,
let's play.
They could go. Devil's advocate is they could go 1-11. They're not going to. They're not going to. They'll be favored in at least 3 games.
Yeah.
Southern Illinois, Arizona State, and Houston.
Yeah. That would be worst case scenario. Obviously, I honestly can't see much worse than like 4 and 8. I can't see worse than 4 and 8. I think 4 wins is the floor. And then Vegas has them at 4.5. I think it's
dude. And the money, if you bet this, it's plus 110. So you're getting a little bit of a return. Besides that, like I said, Vegas leans. It's minus 125 to the under. Vegas leads 4 and 8. I disagree with Las Vegas. I think
just ignoring history.
And what's the argument that they weren't in a power conference before? But still, as an independent, I actually think some of their schedules, some of those years, are harder than this schedule. Go look at like an independent schedule, like in 2018 or something. You're sitting there like, what in the fuck?
This team has had only 4 wins or less twice since 1970. So, this would be, by historical standards, a absolutely terrible year for BYU if they can't cash the over.
Smash that over. That over. Let's go. I'm betting this thing. Let's go. I can't wait to watch Myron's with us. Let's go. I can't wait to watch it now. And I like these schedules when you're doing this exercise where every game is competitive.
Yeah.
Cause dude, even Southern Illinois is Southern Illinois beat an FBS last year. You don't have to look that far back. They beat Northern Illinois at Northern Illinois last year. So every game here is like a fun game to me. There's not one that it's like, I wish every college football schedule would look like that. Cause we knock like Georgia playing UMass or something, where I wish they could just replace that with at least a little bit of a threat. You know what I mean?
There's
like
literally one game in that Southern Illinois that they should be strong favorites over. Other than that, a lot of coin flip kind of games on this schedule.
Can't wait for it. I'm on the over. Patty C's on the over. Give Patty C a follow on Twitter, Patty C831. I'm on Twitter at @TheColbyD. The College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. Please, folks, get on over to YouTube, youtube.com/The College Experience. Hit that like and subscribe. It helps us. It really helps us too if you give us a 5-star review on iTunes. I can't emphasize that enough. It's football season. We haven't got enough of those, and doesn't look good for me. Come on, get on over there. Give us
5, baby.
You know what I mean? Give us 5. Let's go. If you love college football and you love this BYU stadium, I highly encourage you to check out the Stadium Heads podcast that I host with Michael Barker, aka College Football Campus Tour, where we talk about the history of college football stadiums and what makes them so great. One of the things I love, Patty C, is this season when Gerry Bohanon is there, or whoever, if it's Retzlaff, whoever's the starting quarterback, is not only is their stadium beautiful, but one of the things I love about college football is they protect the history of the sport. Unlike the NFL, unlike really all the professional sports, with the exception of like Wrigley or Lambeau.
Well, Edwards would be a dome right now if they had their way. If the NFL was in control.
Well, just think when you go score that touchdown, when Bohanon or Retzlaff is scoring that touchdown, that's the same end zone that Jim McMahon scored in. That's the same end zone that Vaisik Kahima scored in. That's the same end zone that Steve Young scored in. I love that about the history of college football, and I think if you dig me on that. On what I'm saying right now, I think you'll love the Stadium Heads podcast, because part of that is the history of the sport and what makes it so great. The stadium is absolutely beautiful. I think it's one of the best stadiums in all of college football. And just listen to that pod. I think you'll dig it. Stadium Heads podcast, myself, College Football Campus Tour. If you don't know him, you should follow him on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour.
Michael Barker, the man.
Yes, he is the man. And also check out the college basketball experience. I know Mark Pope left, but I'm very, the chat was talking about this before. BYU, great seasons of late. They're spending money. Excited to talk BYU. They have a great home court advantage. Love BYU does college basketball and college football right. Honestly, sure, it's a dry campus or something, but I'm saying like the energy, the fan base.
Well, yeah, when you have that kind of fan buy-in,
yes,
hard to mess it up.
Yes. So check out the college basketball experience, check out the college baseball experience as well. And check out the sports gambling podcast. Folks, I cannot wait to break down the rest of the teams. Tomorrow morning, we got the Colorado Buffaloes scheduled for 8 a.m. Pacific. So until then, go listen to our other previews. All the SEC is out. All the Mountain West is out. All of the Big 10 is out as we continue to go through the Big 12. Till next time, folks, this is the college football experience, soak style. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here. Run and shoot.